Aloha, I'm Art Vento, President and CEO of the Maui Arts and Cultural Center. On behalf of the MACC Ohana, we wish good health in mind, body, and spirit to you, our Maui community. Before we can stand together again, we must now stand apart, so we are closed to the public. But remember, this is only an intermission. We look forward to the day when the MACC can welcome you back to enjoy the healing power of the arts through live performances, arts and education programs, and all the free community events that the MACC has to offer. When it can happen on Maui, it will happen at the MACC. Now, through the generous support of the County of Maui and the Mayor's Office on Economic Development, the MACC has created Live at the MACC, a series of virtual and live events featuring Hawaii-based artists and diverse art forms. The series is designed to bring much-needed opportunities for many artists, all originating from here, your Maui Arts and Cultural Center. While we remain closed to the public on a daily basis, the MACC remains committed that when it can happen safely on Maui, it will happen at the MACC. And for tonight's edition of Live at the MACC, we bring you classical pianist Jonathan Korth.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the MACC at Home. My name is Jonathan Korth, and the first piece you heard there was the aria from the Goldberg Variations by J.S. Bach. Outside of those of us that are essential workers, I find many of us have more time to ourselves. It's a slower pace of life, certainly more solitude at home. And in the first few months of the pandemic, at least, I turned to Bach very often. There's a really simple and organized nature to his music that was attractive when there was, a lot of chaos and unknown swirling around us. This aria is part of a much larger piece, so if you liked what you heard, I'd encourage you to listen to the whole thing. It's about a 60 to 80-minute work, depending upon who you listen play it. And it gets more and more complex, but this aria is just a true gem of the Baroque period, a simple saraband, a dance with a little bit of ornamentation. Next, we're going to go to two idols of mine in a way, Earl Wild and Stephen Huff. They've transcribed rather famous pieces. You're going to recognize the tunes immediately. And one of the reasons I've always looked up to them is because they make such hard music sound so easy. And they've certainly given huge challenges to the pianist in these next two pieces, but always keep the integrity of the original tune. Listen for something I like to call a third arm effect. So you'll hear the bass, you'll hear the treble, and then you'll hear a voice in between. And this is something that Liszt made very popular in his day, and then certainly these two wizards of the piano ask us to do the same. So it's not something where I have an extra appendage somewhere hidden under my jacket, but rather that the left hand or the right hand has to take two lines and sometimes combine them in between. In My Favorite Things, you'll even hear more than 3 lines sometimes, as Huff tries to make it as tricky as possible. Here's The Man I Love and My Favorite Things. All right, I'll make a deal. I'll use my fingers for the rest of this program. So we're going to turn to Debussy. And this isn't the kind of standard Debussy you're used to, you know, the Clair de Lune, more impressionistic side of Debussy. This one is kind of the opposite. It's satirical, it's funny, and it's called Gollywog's Cakewalk. Those of you that studied piano long enough, you know, maybe in your middle school or high school years, may have played this. It's from something called the Children's Corner. Very popular pedagogical piece, but there's so much more to this piece than kind of meets the eye. A cakewalk was something that evolved in the 19th century from African slaves. It would be a dance they would do when they would get together. And first-hand accounts say how much fun many of these slaves had at the time at these cakewalks. But there was also a flip side to these. There was a lot of exaggeration, a lot of satire. And it was a way secretly for them to make fun of their owners, which I think they needed, obviously, some outlet for. So here's Gollywog's Cakewalk. And you can even hear some aspects of jazz in this piece. So he was obviously trying to channel this African-American music that he started to hear in Europe in the 1910s and 20s. Okay, we've got two pieces left on the program. Before we get there, I just wanted to say a huge, huge mahalo to all of the people behind the scenes making this possible. it's very clear over the last 6 months that live performances are easy. Doing these digital performances is so much harder, and it takes so much more effort. So not only thank you for your work and your expertise, but really thank you for all of the expertise, equipment, and everything else that's been put into this. So we as artists are just so grateful to have this medium to come to you in the time of COVID. We're going to go to Rachmaninoff for these last two pieces. He's someone that I have had a kind of lifelong relationship, even love affair with. We're similar in a lot of ways. He was 6'7", I'm 6'4". He has a huge hand. Mine, I try to have it big, but it's maybe not quite as big as his. And he writes music that just kind of penetrates my soul. It's deep, brooding chords very often that are just so much fun to play. I don't feel like I'm a particularly melancholy person, and that was maybe a way that we would describe Rachmaninoff's music, but I think as artists we're always looking to experience the parts of ourselves that we don't normally get to show in public, maybe, let's say. So, maybe, I don't know, I'm not that funny, but I like to play funny pieces, or maybe angry pieces or sad pieces, but Rachmaninoff gets to the real core, I think, of what I like to express. And makes the piano sound so good. So the D-flat major prelude, that's going to be kind of this, fantastic virtuoso sort of Rachmaninoff. Before that, we're going to hear the G major prelude, which is almost a translucent little piece. Beautiful melody, something where I think you see a completely different side of Rachmaninoff and his soul. So here's the G major and the D-flat major preludes. So this next piece deserves a bit of an explanation. I'm a sports fan, and during certainly the end of March, April, May, there was no live sports. We could watch reruns of things, but nothing live. And then suddenly by midsummer, we had everything again. We had NBA basketball, we had baseball, and then we had football starting soon after. It got me thinking that I should really play kind of a sports-inspired piece again. And a piece I'd played about 5 years ago by Annie Gosfeld came to mind. This piece is a bit unusual, as you see, but describes a game between the Yankees and the Dodgers, appropriate this year for the World Series, Game 4 of the World Series. And I don't really want to describe what I think this might be, but it's either the kind of the roar and the machinations of the crowd and all of the sounds maybe even around the stadium, or something much more personal, something like an inner kind of heartbeat and inner dialogue of a person in the game. One of the things I look for on piano often is color. I'm always looking for what kind of sounds can I create with the piano? Well, how can I make it sound like an orchestra? And a composer like George Crumb and many American composers after him have not only used the keys of the piano, but also the innards of the piano, by tapping or using harmonics or all these different things on the strings. Annie has her own way of doing this, but still, I think you'll see she finds her own colors or her own ideas inside the piano. There's one little catch, though, for this piece, and it's this. I'm not going to use my hands to play this piece, but rather baseballs. See how it goes.
you.